I was buttoning up the navy shirt my mom bought me for my 21st birthday when my hands started shaking. That shirt had hung in the back of my closet for years, untouched. She always said it brought out my eyes. I couldn't look in the mirror without seeing her face, hearing her laugh. Today would have been her 63rd birthday. I'm Nathan Weller, I'm 37, live in Denver, and I sold my auto logistics startup 2 years ago for just over $4 million. I've got the high-rise condo, the Porsche, the fancy watch. Doesn't matter. Nothing rewires a man's brain like going home. The drive to Sacramento was brutal. 18 hours of chewing my lip, thinking about the past I never wanted to revisit. I hadn't set foot in that house in over 3 years, not since the last blow-up with my father. Gary Weller used to run one of the biggest construction companies in Northern California. Now he's broke, bitter, and treats me like a walking ATM. I send him money when he's desperate. That's our relationship. Before we go on, quick note, share which city or country you're watching from. I pulled up to the house around 4. Nothing had changed. The warped porch boards, the peeling paint, the rotting wind chimes. I hadn't even cut the engine before he was out the front door, arms crossed, expression cold as ever. "You made it," he said. No hug, no emotion. Just those 2 words. Inside, the house smelled like overcooked meat and pine sol. My Aunt Dana waved from the kitchen, her smile big and bright as always. She was the only reason I came back. The rest of the family trickled in, mostly cousins and uncles I barely knew. Everyone avoided the tension like it was some piece of rotting fruit in the room. After about an hour, my dad sidled up next to me with 2 glasses of beer. "This one's special," he said, handing one to me. "Figured you deserved something nice for showing up." I took the glass. It was heavier than it looked. My stomach was already tight, but I drank it. Just a few sips to be polite. He was watching me the whole time. 15 minutes later, the edges of the room started warping. Voices got slurry. My legs gave out like they weren't mine. I heard someone call my name as I dropped the glass and collapsed face first into the hallway. Everything went dark before I hit the floor. I woke up to the smell of lavender and old dust. My head felt like it had been hollowed out and filled with cement. Light leaked through the faded blue curtains, stabbing straight into my skull. The ceiling fan creaked overhead like it hadn't been cleaned since the 90s. Then I heard her voice. "Nathan? Hey, sweetie, you with me?" Aunt Dana sat at the edge of the bed, wringing a tissue in her hands, her eyes glossy and red. "What happened?" I croaked. She leaned in closer. "You passed out last night. Gary told everyone you must have been drinking on an empty stomach. Said you couldn't hold your liquor." I blinked hard. "What?" Dana's voice dropped. "You only had 1 glass, Nathan. I watched you. You never even finished it." My chest tightened. I tried to sit up, but my arms were like rubber. My mouth was dry as sand. Dana placed a cool hand on my shoulder. "I stayed with you all night. Just wanted to make sure you woke up." I stared at the ceiling. "That beer, he called it special." She nodded slowly. I heard him. "That's why I only let you drink half. I was watching." A cold shiver ran through me, deeper than the headache or nausea. Something ugly crawled up from my gut. "I think he tried to drug me," I said. Dana exhaled, like she'd been holding that breath for years. "I was afraid you'd say that, because it's happened before." I turned my head toward her, my skin crawling. "What do you mean?" She looked away, chewing her bottom lip. "My dad. Your grandfather. Remember how he died? They said it was a stroke. But it was right after a big fight with Gary. He'd stopped trusting him with the business. That night, they drank together. Next morning, he was gone." "Good grief," I whispered. "You think... Gary?" "I don't know what to think," she said, voice cracking. "I buried it for years. But when you dropped last night, just like him, I couldn't ignore it anymore." I swung my legs off the bed. My limbs were still shaky, but anger burned away some of the fog. "He's broke," I said. "He's always asking for money. I've got no wife, no kids. If I died..." "You're the only one with any real money left in this family," Dana finished. "And if you don't have a will, your estate would default to him." I rubbed my temples, trying to piece it together. "But I don't have proof, just a bad feeling and a weird beer." Dana stood up, walked to the window, then turned back. "I don't want to believe it. He's my brother. But I saw your face when you went down. That wasn't drunk. That was something else?" I looked around the room, my old room, posters still pinned to the wall, peeling at the edges. My old high school baseball cap hanging from the lamp. It felt like a bad dream, wearing my old skin. "Do you think he meant to kill me?" I asked. She didn't answer right away, just stared out the window. "I think you need to be careful, and if you want to dig into this, I'll help you, quietly." I stood up, still unsteady, but clearer than I'd felt in years. "I want to know the truth," I said. Dana gave a sharp nod, eyes hard now. "Then we do this smart. No tipping him off, no more drinks you didn't open yourself." My stomach twisted, but I forced a breath in. "If he tried to poison me once, he'll try again." Dana looked me dead in the eye. "Then next time, we'll be ready." And I knew right then, we were going back into the lion's den. We were ready. Or, at least, that's what I told myself. 2 weeks later, I was back in Sacramento for Thanksgiving. The air smelled like rain and burned leaves, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into a trap. Dana didn't want me to go, but I told her if I skipped it, Gary would know something was up. The house looked the same, except for the inflatable turkey wobbling on the front lawn. My stomach turned when I stepped onto the porch. The last time I was here, I'd hit the floor and almost didn't wake up. Gary opened the door, all smiles. Look who decided to come back, the big shot son himself. His grin didn't reach his eyes. I forced a laugh. "Wouldn't miss Thanksgiving, Dad." Dinner was chaos like always. Kids running around, football blasting from the living room, Dana keeping her distance but watching me like a hawk. The turkey was dry, conversation worse. Gary kept bragging about the old days, when he had crews running all over California. Everyone nodded along, pretending not to notice the bitterness under every word. Halfway through dessert, he stood and clapped his hands. "Got something special for my boy," he said, heading for the kitchen. My heart dropped into my shoes. Dana's eyes met mine across the table. She shook her head slightly, but I couldn't move. I had to know. Gary came back with 2 frosty bottles and that same crooked smile. "You remember last time I gave you one of these? Figured you'd appreciate another shot at it." He set 1 bottle in front of me, 1 in front of himself. "Cheers to family," he said. I smiled back, the muscles in my face stiff. "To family." He turned his head to grab his lighter from the counter. Just a second, maybe less, but it was enough. I swapped the bottles, quick and quiet. My pulse was hammering so hard I could barely hear anything else. We both took a sip. Mine was bitter, but normal. I forced it down. He drained half of his. The next 30 minutes crawled. I made small talk with cousins, pretended to laugh at old stories, but I never took my eyes off him. He was fine, until he wasn't. First came the sweat, tiny beads along his forehead, then the color drained from his face. He tried to stand, but his legs wobbled. His breath came in shallow bursts. "Dad!" someone called out. Gary grabbed the edge of the table, knocking over a bowl of mashed potatoes. He gasped, choking like he couldn't get air. Then his knees gave out. People screamed. Chairs flew back. Dana was already on the phone with 911, barking the address. I just stood there, frozen, my brain stuck between horror and confirmation. The paramedics arrived fast, flashing lights, chaos, shouts. They got him onto a stretcher, checked his vitals, and wheeled him out in a blur. The front door slammed behind them, leaving a stunned silence in the house. Someone asked what happened. I muttered something about low blood sugar, but my throat was dry and my voice didn't sound like mine. When the last car pulled out of the driveway and the house went quiet, Dana and I stayed behind. She looked pale, shaking slightly. "You didn't," she started. I cut her off. "No, I swapped them." She closed her eyes. "Oh my God." I walked to the kitchen, the empty bottle still on the counter. I picked up the one that was meant for me, still half full. The label was smudged, condensation dripping down the side. "This one's mine now," I said, sliding it into a plastic grocery bag. Dana watched me, her face unreadable. "You're sure about this?" "I was dead for 30 seconds once," I said quietly. "I'm not giving him another chance." We locked the door behind us. The night was cold, and my hands were shaking as I carried that bottle to the car. I didn't know exactly what was in it, but I knew it wasn't just beer. And this time, I was going to prove it. I didn't sleep that night. I kept the beer bottle upright in the passenger seat, sealed tight inside 2 layers of Ziploc bags. I barely blinked, just gripped the wheel, and replayed Gary's face as he collapsed, his hands trembling, eyes wide, skin pale as bone. By morning, I was pulling into a dingy parking lot in Oakland outside a small lab that didn't advertise and didn't ask questions. A guy named Manny met me at the back entrance. He wore latex gloves and didn't bother with small talk. "You said you wanted toxicology, sedatives, alcohol levels, anything weird?" he asked, taking the bag from me with care. "Everything," I said. "I need to know exactly what's in it, no mistakes." "It'll take a few days, 3, maybe 4. I paid in cash, no paper trail, no names. Then I got back in my car and drove straight to my place, 36 floors above downtown Denver, with a view of the skyline that used to make me feel untouchable. Now it felt like a cage. The next 3 days crawled. I didn't answer calls, barely ate. I kept the lights low, blinds shut, like someone was watching. I couldn't stop thinking about him, about all of it. I remembered being 12, lying to the school nurse about the bruises on my ribs. I remembered him slamming a wrench across the garage when I said I wanted to go to college instead of working construction. I remembered the way he looked at me when Mom died, like it was my fault she chose me over him in the end. But this was something else. This was murder, or at least awfully close to it. On the third night, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered before the second ring. "This is Manny. You still want the results?" "Yeah, tell me." He cleared his throat. "The bottle you brought in tested positive for phenobarbital. High concentration. Strong enough dose to knock out a man twice your size. It wasn't mixed well. Settled near the bottom. If you'd finished it..." I didn't say anything. My fingers dug into the couch cushion. "You'd be dead," he said flatly. "That stuff slows breathing, heart rate, suppresses the nervous system. Would have looked like cardiac arrest if no one knew better." "Anything else?" "Nope, just beer and poison." I hung up, sat there in silence. My ears were ringing. I opened my laptop and pulled up my bank records, my legal documents, everything I'd ignored since selling the company. No will, no trust, no beneficiaries. If I died, my assets, $4,600,000 in cash, plus the condo, investments, vehicles, would automatically go to next of kin, which meant Gary. He'd tried to kill me for money. I stared at my own reflection in the black screen. I looked wrecked, eyes bloodshot, jaw clenched, dark circles under my eyes like bruises. I closed the laptop and stood. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was done playing polite. The next time I saw my father, I wasn't going to ask questions. I was going to get answers. Not from Dana, not from memories, from him. I grabbed my coat and keys. There was only one man left who could tell me how deep this went, and he was lying in a hospital bed, probably wondering why the poison didn't work. He'd find out real soon that I was still alive. And this time, I was coming straight for him. I flew into Sacramento and picked up a rental car. I drove straight from the airport, white-knuckled the whole way. By the time I pulled into the old driveway, my jaw hurt from grinding my teeth. Gary's truck was parked out front, covered in hospital wristbands and parking stickers. He was home. I walked up to the door, lab report in hand. The knock echoed through the house. For a second, I hoped he wouldn't answer. But then I heard the familiar drag of his boots. He opened the door, leaning on a cane, face pale but eyes sharp. "Well, look who's alive," he said with a grin. "Come to check on your old man?" "Something like that," I said, pushing past him. The living room looked the same. Stale air, beer cans, old bills stacked on the table. He shuffled behind me, breathing heavy. "You're looking good," he said. "Guess that beer didn't sit right with either of us, huh?" I turned and dropped the envelope on the coffee table. "You want to tell me what was in it?" He blinked. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb. I had the beer tested." His smirk faltered. "You what?" I opened the envelope, pulled out the lab report, and slid it toward him. "Phenobarbital. Enough to kill a man." He let out a short laugh, too forced to sound real. "That's ridiculous. You think I tried to poison my own son?" I didn't say a word, just stared at him. He looked down at the papers again, eyes darting over the lines, then back up at me. "You must have mixed it up. Maybe someone else." "I swapped the bottles, Dad." That shut him up. The color drained from his face. His mouth opened, then closed again. "What did you say?" he whispered. "You drank the one meant for me." He sank onto the couch like someone had cut his strings. His hands shook as he pressed them to his face. When he spoke again, his voice was small. "I didn't think it would go that far. I needed time. His voice went low, almost a whisper. You wouldn't turn me in, would you? I leaned forward until our faces were inches apart. If you ever come near me or Dana again, I'll hand this report straight to the cops. Don't test me. He didn't respond, just stared at the floor, shoulders shaking. I stood, grabbed the report, and headed for the door. My pulse was still pounding, but the fear was gone. Only anger and something colder. When I opened the front door, I froze. Dana was standing in the hallway, eyes wide. She'd heard everything. Her lips trembled, but her voice was steady. It's true then. I nodded once. She looked past me toward the living room, her face hardening. Then he's finished. I didn't argue. I just followed her out into the sunlight, leaving the man who called himself my father to drown in his own lies. Dana didn't say a word as we walked through the side gate and into the backyard. The air was still, heavy with the smell of dried grass and old charcoal. The paper lanterns Mom used to hang every year were still there, faded from sun and dust, swaying slightly in the breeze like ghosts. Dana stopped beneath one and looked up. She always loved these stupid things, she said. I nodded. My hands were clenched in my jacket pockets. I could still hear Gary's voice, his empty excuses, the fake tears. Dana turned to face me. He did the same thing to my dad. My chest tightened. What do you mean? She didn't flinch. I think Gary killed him 30 years ago, and I think I've known that for a long time. I just stared. He never liked that my dad kept control of the family money, she said. After Grandma died, he made sure the trust stayed in my dad's name. Gary hated it, thought it should have been his, but Dad never trusted him. He knew he was reckless. I swallowed hard. How did he die? They said it was a heart attack. He was only 59. I was 17. The night before, he and Gary had drinks in the garage. Just the two of them. Gary said they were patching things up. She folded her arms, voice cracking slightly. Next morning, I found him slumped over in the recliner, empty glass on the table. No autopsy, no questions. Gary called the lawyer the same day and had himself named executor of the estate. And no one thought that was suspicious? Dana laughed bitterly. No one wanted to. We were all too shocked and scared. I stepped back, looking around the yard. If he did that once, it means he's done this before, planned it, covered it up. I never wanted to believe it, she said. But after what he tried to do to you, I can't ignore it anymore. I looked her dead in the eye. Then we find out. We go all the way back and we dig until there's nothing left to hide. Dana nodded slowly. He kept all Dad's stuff when he died. Took over his office, his files, his notes. Everything. Where? In the back shed. It's locked. Old combination safe and a filing cabinet. I've got the keys. I raised an eyebrow. You sure you want to open that door? She looked at me, eyes steady. I should have opened it years ago. I owe him that much. We stood in silence under the lanterns, the light from the kitchen window casting long shadows across the yard. I'll bring gloves, a flashlight, whatever we need, I said. If he kept records, we'll find them. Dana looked back at the house, her jaw tight. He thought we'd be too weak to dig this up. That's how he's gotten away with it. Not anymore. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a small silver key, and dropped it into my hand. Let's finish what he started, she said. I closed my fingers around the key. My heartbeat was steady now, focused. Tomorrow, we'd start digging through Gary's past. This time, not just to save myself, but to bury him in the truth. The next morning, Dana met me at the shed with a thermos of black coffee and a crowbar, just in case the lock didn't cooperate. The shed was sun-bleached and sagging, half swallowed by ivy. I hadn't been back there since high school. It smelled like old wood, gasoline, and mildew. Dana handed me the key with a sharp look. You ready? I nodded and popped the lock. Inside, everything was coated in dust. Lawn chairs, toolboxes, a busted weed whacker, and in the back corner, a gray metal filing cabinet next to a tall gun safe. That's it, she said. We cleared the junk off and rolled the safe out into the light. It had an old-school rotary dial. Dana pulled a slip of paper from her coat pocket. Combination was taped to the back of one of his books. Been hiding there for years. I spun the dial. It clicked open on the first try. Inside, we found a weathered leather journal wrapped in a rubber band, a few old bank slips, and 3 file folders. Dana reached for the journal with both hands, like it was a holy relic. She opened to the final page. Her breath caught. "Read this." I took it and scanned the shaky handwriting. "Had a drink with Gary tonight. Said he wants to rebuild trust. Didn't feel right. Within an hour I was dizzy, couldn't focus. Same thing happened 2 weeks ago. I know he wants control. I'm not imagining it. If anything happens to me, someone needs to ask questions." I looked up. He knew. Dana's voice cracked. And we didn't listen. The rest of the journal was filled with financial notes, entries about the trust, and a list of account numbers. I packed everything up and flew straight back to Denver. 2 days later, I hired a private investigator named Rourke, retired FBI, straight shooter. I gave him copies of the journal and everything from the safe. Then I got a lawyer, real estate and estate fraud specialist. It didn't take long. Rourke found that the will Gary submitted after Grandpa's death had been altered, a signature traced over in different ink, 2 witnesses that didn't exist. The inheritance had been drained slowly, shifted into side accounts tied to shell businesses in Gary's name. I called Dana. "It's enough to move forward." She didn't hesitate. "Then let's do it." We filed a formal request through the court for exhumation and forensic review. Took weeks, but the judge approved it. I stood beside Dana at the cemetery when they pulled his casket from the ground. She didn't cry, just held my hand with a grip that told me she was done being afraid. The results came back 2 weeks later. Phenobarbital, same drug Gary used on me. The coroner's report listed it plain as day. Presence of barbiturates inconsistent with any prescribed medications. High concentration. Suspected poisoning. I stared at that line for 10 full minutes. Dana called me that night. "He killed him," she said flatly. "He murdered our father." I didn't correct her. We weren't kids anymore. We weren't guessing. We had the proof. Now it was time to bury the man who'd buried the truth for 30 years. The courtroom was freezing, dead quiet except for the buzz of fluorescent lights overhead. I sat beside Dana at the plaintiff's table. Every piece of evidence we had spread out in organized piles. Our grandfather's journal, toxicology reports, financial statements, the forensic report on the forged will. Gary sat across from us in a suit that didn't fit right. Face pale, hair slicked back like he was trying to look respectable. He didn't look at me, not once. The trial moved fast. The DA hammered every point clean and brutal, starting with the lab results from the poison beer, then moving to the exhumation report. The expert testimony laid it out so clearly, even the judge looked rattled. When it came time to cross-examine Gary, he tried to hold it together. "I love my father," he said. "I would never—" The prosecutor didn't blink. "Then why is your signature on a forged will that contradicts the one on file from the year before?" Gary stuttered. I don't know what you're talking about." "You expect this court to believe someone else forged your name on documents that benefited only you?" He started sweating. His voice cracked. "People forget things. He changed his mind. No further questions." Gary sat back, lips pressed tight, his hands clenching the armrests like he was bracing for a fall. Next, they called Dana to the stand. She looked small walking up there, but her voice was steady. She spoke for 10 minutes. "After our father died, I thought we were just unlucky," she said. "I believed Gary when he told me it was natural causes. I was 17. I didn't know how to ask the right questions. But the guilt has eaten me alive for 30 years. She turned toward the jury. And then I watched him try to do the same thing to Nathan. Only this time, it didn't work. This time, we fought back. Someone in the jury wiped their eyes. They called me next. I didn't want to take the stand, but I did. I kept it short, just the truth. I survived my own father trying to poison me, I said. He handed me a drink and smiled while I swallowed it. And if my aunt hadn't been watching, I'd be dead. I paused. That's not a misunderstanding. That's not bad judgment. That's attempted murder. By the time I stepped down, I wasn't angry anymore, just tired. The jury didn't take long, maybe 3 hours. The foreman stood and read the verdict. On count 1, attempted murder, guilty. On count 2, homicide of Richard Weller, guilty. I didn't look at Gary. At the subsequent sentencing hearing, the judge imposed life in prison without the possibility of parole. Appeal rights remained standard. No more running. Dana reached over and grabbed my hand. Her fingers were shaking. It was done. They cuffed Gary in front of us. He still didn't look at me. He just stared at the floor like the weight of his own lies had finally crushed him. When the bailiff pulled him toward the door, I stood. One last look. He hesitated. "I'm your father," he muttered. I met his eyes. "Not anymore." They took him away. The door slammed shut behind him. Dana let out a breath that sounded like it had been stuck in her chest for decades. The courtroom emptied, one row at a time. We stayed sitting, surrounded by silence and the scent of old wood and paper. It wasn't justice in the poetic sense, no dramatic speech, no peace offering, just the truth laid bare. And for once, that was enough. The elevator dinged, and Dana stepped into the condo like she belonged there. And she did. She moved in the week after the sentencing, 2 suitcases, her favorite mug, and a stack of old sketchbooks I didn't even know she kept. No drama, no second thoughts, just done. We sold the house in Sacramento within a month. The agent called it a fixer with character. We didn't care. I let Dana choose where the money went. Most of it landed with a non-profit for abuse survivors. Felt right. She started painting again, set up a little easel by the corner window. First it was flowers, then rooftops, and eventually a portrait of her dad. She didn't cry when she finished it, just stood back and nodded like something heavy had finally settled. I kept things low-key, picked up some freelance coding work. No more pressure, no more investor meetings, just quiet days, clean code, and peace. One night, we sat out on the balcony, 2 mugs of tea. The city spread beneath us, all lit up like a circuit board, clean, distant, silent. Dana leaned back in the chair, blanket over her knees. "Your real dad died a long time ago," she said. "What's left of him can rot in prison." I didn't argue. She was right. I'd spent years trying to outrun the man, trying to earn love from someone who only saw me as a dollar sign. But the truth was simpler than that. He'd made his choice. Now, we'd made ours. I looked over at her. Her face was calm, paint smudged under one nail, eyes soft but steady. This woman was more of a parent to me than Gary ever was. I smiled at her. "Thanks for not letting me die," I said. She smirked. "Anytime." We sat in silence after that. No need to fill the space. The city blinked below us, steady and untouchable. The scars would stay. I knew that. But they didn't burn anymore. Now they reminded me of what we survived, and who stood with me when it counted. We sat there until the tea went cold, just watching the lights and letting the quiet settle in, for once, without fear.